In this presentation, we will set up and create jobs and classes within QuickBooks Pro, QuickBooks Desktop. Here we are in our practice problem 4. We got our open windows open. You could open the open windows by going to the view dropdown and the open windows list. Let's take a first look at our objective. We're going to go back to our Excel file to do that. Within our Excel file, we have the same Excel file that we have been using for the second and third problem, now on the fourth problem. So we have the same objective, but we're going to be using a different mechanism within QuickBooks. So our objective, you'll recall, is to be able to track this information, record this information into our system. We will be recording it primarily to the cost of goods sold instead of going through work in process to finished goods and then cost of goods sold, because we'll be focusing in on the job cost reports, which are going to be income statement temporary account type of reports. Similar process we did for problem 2 and 3. It's going to be looking more similar to problem 3, where we're going to have more detailed in the account grouping than just a simple cost of goods sold type of account. Then we want to be able to track that information, tie out the cost of goods sold to the job reports, the cost of goods sold, and whatever's in the retained earnings. We're going to have the same kind of reconciling item down here. The mechanism we will be using in QuickBooks, however, will be different. Rather than using the items and having those double-sided items, which can be a little bit confusing, forcing us to use basically forms, oftentimes forcing us to use forms in ways that isn't quite natural. It's not exactly what normally we would enter the forms for. What we're going to do now is assign out, in essence, assign the classes down here so that we can simply assign a class to the job. And what that'll do is break out, in essence, this cost of goods sold account to a job cost sheet. We're basically simply saying, this is the job, the cost of goods sold. I want to break out this income statement item down here by the class that we're going to be applying it to. And then we can just see a profit and loss report that will be broken out by the classes. So let's see what that will look like. That'll be a little bit easier in that when we set up, we don't have to, again, do those item kind of things. We don't have to use the forms. If we go back to QuickBooks then, notice what we're not going to do. We don't have to go set up the items right now. We might have to set up the items to bill, like we will do at the end. We'll set up the items in order, like you normally would, set up an item in order to charge the customer for it. But we're not setting up those double-sided items. And that means we're not driving things like zero checks or anything like that. What we're going to do is just do our normal bookkeeping process with the added feature of, if we were to say to write a check, I'm going to set up the bank account in order to write the check. Let's do that now. I'm going to set up a new banking account. It's going to be checking. So it's going to set up our checking account. I'm going to say save and close. We're not actually going to write the check, but just note that we have this field called classes. And all we need to do then, every time we do a transaction, is assign it to a proper class. If we forget to assign it to the proper class, then we could just simply run the report. And it's easy to see the ones that are unassigned, and we could then assign them out. So let's see how this will work. Well, I'm gonna close this back out. We're gonna set up our jobs just as we have done in the past. To do that, we're gonna go to our customer. We're gonna go to our customer center, and then we're gonna set up our 3 jobs just as we've done in the past. I'm gonna do this fairly quickly. It's gonna be Smith, and I'm gonna say this is gonna be our customer. Just to be clear, this is our customer, Smith. And then I'm gonna go to the job, no job information. That's it. I'm just gonna keep it there. Save. Or OK, and then we're going to create our job. So I'm going to be on the customer, you'll recall, selecting the drop down, so we're going to add a job to it. Adding the job, we're just going to call it job number 14. I'm not going to add any more detail to it. You may want to add more detail here or in the company name or something like that, such as the address and whatnot. We're just going to keep it at job number 14. Then we're going to go to the job information. I'm going to create the status of the job. I'm going to create the status of the job as in progress, just as we have done in the past. Then I'm going to say, OK. We're going to create a new job, but we don't want to be on job number 14. We want to be on the client, Smith. Note, again, you could have 3 different clients with 3 different jobs to those clients, or multiple jobs to one client, whatever the case may be. We're going to be back on Smith. We're going to then go to the job dropdown, add another job. Job number 15 is what we're going to call this. We're going to go back to the information. We're going to then say that this is going to be in progress as well. Then we're going to close this back out and say, OK, one more job. Make sure you're on Smith, not on number 15. Then we're going to select the drop down. We're going to go to add job. And then we're going to add the job for job number 16. Going back to the job information, we're going to select the job status and make that in progress once again. Then we're going to say, okay. So now we have our 3 jobs. Those 3 jobs are set up. Then I'm going to go back to the Home tab. And within the Home tab, I'm just like, this is just the base starting point. I'm now going to go to our Lists drop down. I'm going to go to the Lists up top, and we're going to go to our Classes. We're going to go to our Classes, and we're going to set up the same kind of classes for those jobs. The classes are going to be tied out to the job 14, 15, and 16. So this is what we're doing basically instead of the double-sided items. So instead of a double-sided item, we're going to have these classes here. So we're going to say that we have the class. We're going to go down to the classes where it has the drop down, which is really a class rise up. And we're going to go to the new, and I'm going to call this. Now I want to make a subcategory of classes. What I want to do is make a class that's going to be open. So I have an open class, and then I'm going to say okay. And then I'm going to make another category of class by clicking the class rise up and go to the new, and this is going to be closed. So that's going to be the parent categories. I'm going to say okay. Now the three classes we have currently are all open. So I'm going to just put them all into the subcategory, or the parent will be open. They will be subcategories of job 14, job 15, and job 16. Let's do that now. We're going to go to the class rise up. We're going to go to the new, and this is going to be the job number 14. It's going to have a subclass. We're going to say it's a subclass of the open job. Then if I say okay, just so we could check this out as we go, there it is. It's a subclass. And then I'm just going to do the same thing for 15 and 16. And then once they're closed, of course, I'll change the class status to closed, so they will be a subclass of job number or the closed status. And that will create a job cost sheet that we can actually collapse, which is really nice. It works pretty well. So we're going to go then to the classes down here. We're going to go to the class rise up, new. This is going to be job number 15. I'm going to make that a subclass of the open job once again. And then we're going to say next. And then I'm going to say another class. And this is going to, this is going to be job number 16. And we're going to say it's a subclass drop down of the open jobs. And then we're going to say okay. So there's going to be our 3 classes. And what will happen then is when we start to enter our data, we're going to enter data into the home page now. Our objective now is to basically enter data just like we normally would, just like we would with the check here, but then assign the class. And then when we assign the class, what's going to happen is when we run the report, I'm going to go to the reports drop down, company and financial, and we're going to go to the profit and loss by class. It'll break out the revenue and expenses by the classes here, and we'll have a bunch of columns and then a total column. So we'll have the profit and loss that's basically broken out by the classes in this format. And our goal then is to be able to adjust these classes just as we did before, so that we can kind of reconcile it to the job cost sheets, which are going to be by class, to what it should be on basically a completed contract or an accrual basis and whatnot, so that we could then do those adjusting entries we might need to do for whatever reason, for bonding, for insurance or whatever, and then for year-end taxes, whatever we need to do, we could then make the adjustments just as long as we know how the worksheet will tie out, how we can reconcile the worksheet just as we've done before. So we want to make a system that works best for us, it's easy for us to do, and one that we can then reconcile easy between this information and the cost of goods sold and whatever's in the open jobs for the capital, so that we can then reconcile it out and do whatever we need to do at year end for taxes, for bonding, for percentage of completion to get a loan, or whatever we need to do.